All right, everybody, welcome back to the Heath Barn. Hope we're having a great day. This is episode 104, and it is my top 10 favorite athletes of all time. So it was a lot of fun. I had an honorable mention as well, where I named some that didn't quite make the cut, and talk about a couple other things before we get into all that. But very fun episode. Again, top 10 favorite athletes of all time. Enjoy it. Welcome to the Heath Barn. Hit it. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Heath Barn, and welcome to episode 104. And as you heard in the intro, it is my top 10 favorite pro athletes of all time. I'm excited about this one. And I came out here, and I wanted the episode to be about sports, because I haven't done one involving sports here, in the last couple weeks. So I'm excited about this. The list was kind of hard to come up with. I have an honorable mention that I will discuss, but hope you enjoy it. It is February, and February is kind of like a prelude to my favorite sports month of the year. I feel like March is the best month of the year for sports fans. Actually, I don't know if it's for all sports fans, but for me it is, because March Madness obviously is huge and everybody loves it. It's also spring training. So your favorite baseball team, you have all the hope. Everybody's 0-0 in the, win-loss column. So I love spring training, love March Madness, and honestly, not to make this about me, but my birthday always seems to fall on that first weekend, which is amazing. When my birthday is March 19th, and it always falls like on that first weekend of March Madness. So just it's always very exciting. Now, February, some people think it's like a boring month, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I can see that a little bit because the NBA is whatever. But college basketball is ratcheting it up for March Madness. And now, like Super Bowl used to be in January, now it's in February. So, Super Bowl's coming up on Sunday. Very excited about that. We'll probably have some content on the Super Bowl coming up soon. But for this episode, honestly, I came out here not even knowing what I was going to do for sure. But I always come up with something. So, I thought it would be fun for me to give my top 10 favorite pro athletes of all time. There is an honorable mention because I'm old, and when you're old, you've seen a lot of sports and you like a lot of players. So there's also a lot that I dislike, but we're just naming the my top 10 favorites and an honorable mention. So other things going on real quick, not sports related. So happy that Curb Your Enthusiasm's back. It's one of my favorite shows. If you've listened to past episodes, we talk about it. Larry David's the man. And the first episode came out this past Sunday. And they picked up right where they left off, and it's all good. It's the last season, so excited about that. Curb is back. Besides that, I'm just glad January's over. New Year's resolutions are already down the shitter. I was going to start a diet for whatever. My son's 7. I basically have been saying I'm going to lose weight since he was born, basically. So this year, though, I really need to do the most that I ever have. So that was the plan. But now I think the plan is going to go ahead and maybe after the Super Bowl, because everybody, everybody eats their ass off at the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. Wife's birthday's this weekend. We're going to go out, and we're going to go to a restaurant, and I'm sure I'll overeat then. So, I'm just like, okay, well then now I have postponed it to the day after the Super Bowl to start losing weight. even got we got family pictures first week of April. So it's even like putting a timeline on it because I'm like, I'm not, so it's, it gives you like a goal to shoot for. You gotta lose however much weight by the time the family pictures are. So first week of April now is what we're looking at. But, anywho, excited about the family pictures? Sure, why not? But also, excited for the Super Bowl, excited for, March. It's, again, we're on the precipice, big word. I got a bachelor's, bitches. Took forever. Doesn't matter. Got one. Precipice of a lot of fun stuff coming up. So, any Hoosers, without further ado, now I also think I've been watching Illinois basketball. Been watching, getting ready, ramping up for the Cardinals season. And the NFL is obviously Super Bowl's coming up. So I was just like, okay. This will be a good chance for me to give my top 10 favorite pro athletes of all time. I also want to say before I start, some of them are like childhood. I'll explain as I go, I guess. I don't need to explain it now. I'll just get into it. Let's just get into it. I've already yapped enough about random crap, so let's get into the list. Okay. I want to get into honorable mention first, and I'll make this much, much quicker than I will the actual list, but I will say this. My first one, and he would be in the top 10, except let's see here. He played for the Spurs, and he would have been my top 10, like no brainer. But then all of a sudden he sits out a year because of an injury, and he gets traded, whatever. Just he's kind of like the poster boy for load management crap, and he was never like that before. So whatever. First I will mention Kawhi Leonard because he doesn't say shit. He is quiet. He's humble. He's a great defensive player. He's a wonderful offensive player, like one of the best all-around players in the world still, and is a Hall of Famer. But I remember when Stevie was like 4 or 5 months old, I bought him a Kawhi Leonard onesie, Spurs jersey. Kawhi was my guy, my basketball player, favorite basketball player. Amazing. But then there's that whole Kawhi deal where he sits out for like a whole season, and then he goes to Toronto, leaves him after a year, and then like I said, like king of load management, why is he sitting out? Why is he sitting out? That kind of stuff. So that, to me, that took him out of my top 10 and put him in the honorable mention. I still love him. I love the way he plays the game of basketball. But for a guy that just never says anything and is humble and he's drama as far as, like I said, just sitting out when has these mystery injuries, set out a whole year because of all that kind of stuff. So, Kawhi Leonard is on my honorable mention. 5 years ago, he would have been in my top 10 for sure. Okay. Next one. Brian Jordan, St. Louis Cardinals. Played for the Cardinals in the late 90s. I am a diehard St. Louis Cardinal fan. For anyone that doesn't know that. He was a great outfielder. He is a two-sport guy that gets no credit for it. He was a free safety for the Atlanta Falcons, and then he decided to play baseball too. And he was a hell of a baseball player. He was exciting, and again, he was just one of those guys. He had that kind of it factor for me. Played his ass off, played hard. Always felt a little bit underrated to me, but he was, for the Cardinals in the mid to late 90s, he was one of their best, if not their best player. I'm not counting Big Mac, but he was a great, great player and played his butt off and was exciting. And it was during a time where in 96 the Cardinals made the postseason. I say we. Suck it up if you don't like it. Made the postseason, and he was one of our best players. But I just loved him, loved the way he played. And again, two-sport athletes may come back up later on in this episode, but he was great. I loved him. So Brian Jordan. So we got Kawhi Leonard, Brian Jordan. Next one, Jerry Hester. He is a basketball player who played basketball for the University of Illinois. I loved him because he was very humble, very quiet, but also a hell of a player. When I first kind of became a huge fan of Jerry Hester was when I was in high school. I was a freshman when he was a senior, and at the Topper Classic in Danville, Illinois, it was Chicago King, Chicago Farragut, Peoria Manual. We actually played Peoria Manual the next 2 years, but not that year. But Hester played for Manual, and everybody was talking about Chicago King, Chicago King. They had Rashard Griffith and Thomas Hamilton, like these two. One guy was 7'1", one guy was 7'3". Hester dribbled, did a little baseline spin move, and went up and just dunked the crap out of it on one of those two. I can't remember which one. No drama, no whatever. Just ran back, got back on defense like nothing happened. And I was like, I love that dude. Because, again, quiet, humble, great player. Went to Illinois, had a very, very good career there. He ended up doing some radio, calling the games for Illinois for several years. But, you know, he averaged like 15 points a game for his career. But I always fall for those quiet, humble types with basketball, because that move that he did that year, if it was today, these assholes that would be like yelling, screaming at the crowd, you know, waving their arms around, blah, blah, as their man runs back on defense, or as their man runs back and scores, you know. So, not a showboat at all. Just real, just played his butt off. Great player and humble. So, he was always just a guy growing up that I loved. But it started right there, seeing him play in high school, and it just carried over to when he played for Illinois. Next one, we got Kevin Garnett. And Kevin Garnett's kind of on the same boat. He was at that Topper Classic, too. And he played with a guy named Ronnie Fields, who was a Chicago legend. And Fields and Garnett. Fields' stats were very, very similar to Garnett's, except Fields was like 6'3". But Garnett went to Chicago just to play with Ronnie Fields. And I always pulled for him, but saw him at that Topper Classic when he was a senior in high school, and just rooted for him, always pulled for him ever since, and he ended up being an amazing, amazing player. First ballot Hall of Famer. Ronnie Fields was... he looked like I'm not exaggerating, he was 6'3", and he looked like Michael Jordan, and he had just, his calves looked like somebody put softballs right underneath his knees. His vertical was close to 50 inches. I'm not exaggerating with that either. Put it on YouTube, Google it, whatever. He just put on a show every single time he played basketball. Ronnie Fields did. And then, so when you went to at the Topper Classic there in Danville, everybody was there to see him. And then Garnett showed up, and then it was just like it was a complete circus. But I am going to toot my own horn for like 2 seconds. I had the privilege of playing on the same team as Ronnie Fields when I was a sophomore in high school, or the summer after my sophomore year in high school. They had a thing where the top 42 sophomores, they had a super soft camp, first one ever, in Rantoul, Illinois, and there were 42 guys, 6 teams with 7 players on each team. And I remember getting the letter in the mail with the rosters and open it up, and I remember looking for the rosters, and I was looking for Ronnie Fields' name before I was looking for my name, because I was like, because he is a living legend in Chicago, and would have been in the NBA, got in a car wreck, broke his neck, and whatever. But he is a living legend in Chicago, and he. So, anyways, I'm looking for his name, and I find his, and then I find mine, and we're on the same team. And I just remember running downstairs, just screaming to mom and dad, like, I'm on the same fucking team as Ronnie Fields. And it was the coolest thing I ever did. I got to do as a player, not playing for my school, So, the only reason I made that team was because when I was a sophomore, I led the area in like threes and shot like 57. I shot 57% from three when I was a sophomore, and I think people just saw that stat, and I had the most threes in the area, so I think they just thought that I was. But and I again, I could shoot, but that's it. That's it. But to play with him was unbelievable. That's my coolest basketball, because I was just a big fish in a small pond, like a little pissant town, But that was awesome. So, anyways, Kevin Garnett. Sorry, I had toot my own horn there for a second. Okay, now, and then we got a few more. We got Calvin Johnson, amazing. He was always my favorite wide receiver because he was humble, quiet. And I'm going to put Larry Fitzgerald there too as an honorable mention because he was the same way. Anytime you get wide receivers that are dominant and they're not divas, I just love them. I love NFL players that are like that. I love them. So Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson are on the honorable mention. Then we go to, now there's one that this is more when I was growing up as a like back in the 90s. It's almost like you were either a Cowboys fan or a 49ers fan. And Michael Irvin was my guy. Something about him, I just loved him. So I put Michael Irvin on my honorable mention. Now, looking back on it now, I'm kind of like, but again, in my childhood, I loved him. So, and then the other two are St. Louis Cardinals. I got Jack Clark, played for us 85, 86, 87. He was my favorite player on those teams. I mean, Willie McGee, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Hurt. I love all of them, but Jack Clark was my guy. First baseman, just the big bopper in the lineup with a bunch of scrappy guys get on base, steal bases. He was the big bopper in the middle. I played first base, kind of, like when I played baseball. So I don't know if that was it or not, but just always loved Jack Clark. Same kind of thing, just didn't say a whole lot. Just he'd hit one about a mile, then just kind of slowly jog around the bases. So he was my guy when I was little. And the other one now on my honorable mention is Arenado. Hopefully he retires as a Cardinal, but he has been with us 3 seasons now. Love him. So yeah, but he's not my top 10, but he's an honorable mention. So love Arenado. That is my honorable mention. Okay, let me make sure I got everybody. Kawhi, Brian Jordan, Jerry Hester, Garnett, Calvin Johnson, Arenado, Jack Clark, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Irvin. Okay. Now, and remember, some of these are based on my childhood. Some of them are based on kind of like how I feel now. So I'll let you know as I'm going. Number 10. Here's the legit list. My number 10 favorite pro athlete of all time is Chris Carpenter. He pitched for the Cardinals, won a Cy Young with the Cardinals, 2011 World Series. He carried us. He was just a bulldog, old school, badass, kind of like a modern day Bob Gibson type, except not as good. But just no nonsense, old school pitcher, and just absolutely loved him. Loved his demeanor. Loved the way he did everything. So, Chris Carpenter of the St. Louis Cardinals is my number 10 favorite athlete of all time. Number 9. This is a new one. This one, I pretty much watched the NBA playoffs last year, which NBA is hard to watch, but I watched it and I love him. I love how humble and quiet and dominant he is. Nikola Jokic, the Joker, he is my number 9 favorite pro athlete of all time. He is amazing. He is, he's reminding me right now that Larry Bird should be on my honorable mention. I apologize for that. I didn't think that far back. But he reminds me of him a little bit. Amazing passer, amazing rebounder, amazing scorer, but just doesn't give a shit about just whatever whatever the play is to help win. And no BS out of him in a day where there is so much BS out of NBA players. There's none out of him. So, and I just love how he's just. And I grew up, like, my family, we owned horses. We had race horses growing up. So he's got horses back in Serbia. It's like it's money. He's awesome. But the way he plays, and I mean, I just love guys that aren't that athletic, but are just so much smarter than everybody else, and just kick the shit out of everybody without supreme athletic ability. I just think he's amazing. So I love Nikola Jokic. I think more. I feel like he is who more kids should model their game after. Not everybody can do what he does, obviously, but he's just smart. He's just smarter than everybody else, and he's amazing. So I love him. He is number 9, and that came. I don't know. I mean, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't even thought about having him on there, but man, he's the shit. I love him. So he is number 9. Number 8, another basketball player. Something about him. I have an affinity for the guys that are kind of second fiddle. I don't know why, but you'll find that out the farther down the list I get, or the higher up on the list I get, I should say. Because Klay Thompson is number 8 for me. I've just always loved him. He's not flashy. He's just kind of he's an amazing shooter, amazing player, great defensive player. Was always their best defensive player. Draymond Green, blah blah blah. He's like the opposite of Klay for me. I hate Draymond Green probably as much as I love Klay Thompson. Because Draymond never shut up. Klay's the opposite. He's just a killer. He plays and he's got 4 rings, and they wouldn't have any of them without him. And I love Steph. I shouldn't say I love Steph. I really, really like Steph, but I love Klay, and Klay has been my guy the whole time. And there's just something about him. I don't know, but again, as I keep going through this list, you'll see a pattern there with guys that are just great Hall of Famers, but we're never like we're kind of like the second fiddle a little bit. So yes, Klay Thompson is number 8 all time for me. Okay. Number 7. Goldie. Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman. Current first baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. I love him. I love how he plays. I root for his stats. See, here I go. Like another one Auburn mentioned probably could have been Matt Holliday for me, now that I'm thinking about it. I always rooted for Matt Holliday a lot when he played for the Cardinals. But Goldie. Perfect Cardinal in my opinion. Won an MVP, but that's not why. I mean, he just again hits a home run, puts his freaking head down, runs the bases, no BS. Great fielder, great fundamentals, great hitter, great player. Everything about him is just people like to say the Cardinal way, and a lot of people don't like it, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at Cardinals, I think he's a perfect Cardinal. And he, again, with all the bullshit that people do these days when they hit home runs and all that kind of stuff, none of that out of him. No nonsense. He's great. And I love him since the second the Cardinals traded for him, and now, again, he's in my top 10 favorite pro athletes of all time. He's number 7. Okay. Number 6, this is more from when I was growing up. When I was in the 6th grade, I begged Mom and Dad to get a pair of his shoes for basketball season. First year I played basketball, he played junior high basketball my first year. I begged him, even though they weren't even basketball shoes, they were cross trainers. But it's Bo Jackson. Bo I'm so glad they had that 30 for 30 about him a few years back, because it really, if the young kids have the attention span to actually watch a freaking 30 for 30, they could watch it and realize what a badass he was. He legit could have been a Hall of Famer in 2 different sports. And I talked about Brian Jordan. It is an unbelievable feat to be good enough to play a pro sport at a high level in two different sports. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. Deion Sanders did it. Hell, Deion Sanders was one of the best cornerbacks in the league and also hit leadoff for the Braves, but he wasn't an all-star caliber player in baseball. He was a decent leadoff hitter. Bo Jackson was like a freaking video game in two sports. And the most natural, freakish athlete possibly ever. I mean, and it's not just me saying that, being biased. If you ask a lot of people that know a hell of a lot more about this stuff than I do, they'd say the same thing. Like, Bo Jackson might be the best athlete ever. He was just a freak. And on top of all that, not cocky at all. Not cocky at all. Didn't do any celebration bullshit. Hit a home run. He'd hit one like 500 feet and just run the bases. In football, he'd run your ass over or run for an 80-yard touchdown. Just give the ball to the ref. There was no BS out of him at all. So you take all. He was very, very, very humble. I mean, he knew he was better than everybody else, and he'd tell you that. But he wouldn't But it was never any fist pumping bullshit. It was just like humble and freakishly athletic and better than everybody else, but didn't it's almost like he knew, he's like, anybody with a brain that's watching knows I'm better than everybody else. I don't have to tell everybody, just watch, and that's what he did. And that's why, that's why I loved him. Another reason I loved him so much, but he dominated. It was him and Jordan, 89, 90, 88, 89, 90. It was whenever Nike got Bo Jackson and they did that whole campaign, it was him and Jordan, just the two most famous athletes on the planet. Bo was probably ahead of Jordan then, but he was amazing, and came back with an artificial hip too, by the way, and played in the majors for a couple more years with an artificial hip. So it was just an injury that got him, but unbelievable athlete. Possibly the best ever. So he is my number 6. Number 5, the Sheriff. I think that's what they call him. He didn't really have his Sheriff is his nickname, but it's really not a big nickname guy. Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning. I loved him from the get-go. Just always did. Same kind of thing, just dominant. I don't know what it was exactly. When he was a senior in college, I had a buddy that went to college in Alabama, and my brother and I drove all the way there and sat in the end zone when Tennessee played Alabama, and Peyton kicked the shit out of him. And I mean, so I'm trying to think of when exactly I started really, really liking him. I'm sure that helped, but I just think I always liked him. I mean, he was very easy to like. I mean, he was a lot of people's favorite player, but I just remember when he really, really being a big fan of his when he finally got that ring against the Bears and everything like that. But it was also his stats were just dominant. And he didn't have a ring yet, so it was one of those where it's like once he got one, I'm like, okay, now you can't, nobody ever knew Brady was going to get 7, but I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, okay, he's going to go down as the best quarterback of all time, and he's on the Mount Rushmore for sure, in my opinion. But yes, I just remember really, 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 really loving him for a long time when he played, so I put him at number 5. 4, getting some Illinois action going here. Darren Williams, the point guard for Illinois, when they had their best season ever. Best season ever when they went 37-2, I believe. Got beat the national championship by North Carolina. Got screwed. I said it. I don't give a shit. It's not sour grapes. James Augustine. Just watch it. Just rewatch the game. Tell me James Augustine didn't get screwed. But Darren was, again, He was one of those guys that I just felt couldn't get enough credit for me. It was obvious he was our best player on that Illinois team. Everybody was like, D Brown, because D Brown was flashy, and I like D Brown a lot. D Brown was flashy. Great ambassador for the University of Illinois. But Darren was our best player by far, which is why he was the number 3 pick in the draft. But I just loved how Darren ran the team. Darren, I just love, I don't know, man. It's just something about like strong silent types, I guess, or something. Because like Goldschmidt, quiet, kicks everybody's ass, is quiet. Bo Jackson kicks everybody's ass, is quiet. Joker kicks everybody's ass, is quiet. Carpenter kicks everybody's ass, is quiet. Clay, like there's a pattern here. I like the guys that don't say shit, and I hate the guys that do. So, yes, Darren falls right into that category because he was just like determined, like I'm gonna ram this ball down your throat. Like that Arizona game when they came back and won, he just took all that over, and he just had this look on his face. He didn't say a word, but he had this look on his face, just like I will tear your head off. You know, he's a killer. And then he went in the NBA and got 2 gold medals. Made 3 All-Star teams. Should have made 6 if you look at his stats. Should have made like at least 6. Kind of got screwed on that. He was always a little bit underrated, which is weird. But he was in Utah and everything. But he, I mean, there was a 5 or 6 year span where him and Chris Paul were the 2 best point guards in the NBA, and everybody knew it. So he had a wonderful NBA career. Everybody talks about when he went to Brooklyn, he didn't do anything. But if you look at his stats in Brooklyn, he averaged 20 points and 10 assists one year in Brooklyn. So, hello, like tell me he's a badass. Had a great NBA career. So, I loved him and pulled for him about as hard as anybody. So, Darren Williams is my number 4. Number 3 is the best running back in the history of the NFL, in my opinion, Barry Sanders. Again, you talk about a strong silent type. Just made guys look like freaking idiots all the time, and then he'd score a touchdown, just hand the ball to the ref. Played 10 years, kicked the shit out of everybody. Just retired. No fanfare, whatever. Just felt like retiring, so he retired. He's a guy that I fight for in arguments, because I'm like, he would have, and everybody knows this now, like years later, but when he retired, he was second in the NFL in career yards. Emmitt Smith overtook him. Barry played on bad teams, carried a couple to the playoffs, but if you would have swapped those two, Barry Sanders would have ran for over 2,000 yards every single year, because Emmett ran behind that offensive line, and everybody knows that. When you take talent, Barry and Emmitt Smith, there's absolutely no comparison. But the best thing about Barry was just quiet, humble, didn't want any attention. He would just make you look like an idiot, and then just break off a 80-yard touchdown, just hand the ball to the ref, go to the sideline like it's nothing. And man, I just absolutely love that. So he is my number 3. I can't stress to anyone that hasn't seen him play, or anybody younger that didn't get to, that doesn't know anything about him, how dominant he was. And he is, a lot of people say Jim Brown, stuff like that, but the best running back in my lifetime. And I got a hard time thinking Jim Brown's better than him, because maybe he is, whatever, but it's Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders is the man. It's Barry Sanders. So he's my number 3. Number 2. Now this one is a little bit weird, but this is from when I was in high school. This guy, I was obsessed with him in high school. I was obsessed with the Chicago Bulls in high school, and I was obsessed with Scottie Pippen in high school. Scottie Pippen, remember I told you about Klay Thompson, guys like that are like second fiddles that I just always pulled for, or never felt like they got quite enough respect or whatever. Scotty, I love Michael Jordan, but I was obsessed with Scottie Pippen's stats. I was obsessed with attention that he got. I was obsessed with like, okay, he better make the All-Star team this year. I just, when I was growing up, like in high school, I was obsessed with him. And yes, I know that now he's in his 50s and it seems like maybe he's gone a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I'm talking about back when he played. I just felt like no matter what, I'm like, man, like if you mention Michael, you better mention Scotty. And to this day, I will say that's the best 1-2 punch in the history of the NBA. And I think that most people would say that. But Scotty was an amazing player. Him and Michael Jordan, this may sound crazy, but they were the two best overall players in the league, but they were the two best defensive players in the league at the same time on the same team. And then when they brought in Rodman, I was just in heaven. I'm like, they could play 3-on-5 and make the playoffs, you know. So I just always was obsessed with him. I loved him, and I just always wanted him to get more and more attention, more and more credit, more and more publicity, everything. I was a Scottie Pippen guy. So, and again, that's when I was in high school. The kind of player he was, I just was, I don't know. He was my guy. Again, I know he's gone a little kooks here, you know, in his older age, in his 50s. But when he played, he was the shit. And the year that Jordan was gone to play baseball, or I mean, he played baseball, but for whatever reasons, Scotty was the man that year for the Bulls. And they got screwed. I remember this. They got screwed. They got beaten 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals by New York, and they got screwed. Or else, hell, they may have won another championship, even without Jordan. So Scotty was unbelievable. I think he's I would put him as a top 20 player of all time. I'm not going to go crazy and say he's top 10 or any of that kind of stuff, but I bet he's I put him at top 20. Amazing player. So he's my number 2. Number 1 went in the Baseball Hall of Fame last year. Another guy that just takes care of business and keeps his mouth shut. Humble. Plays the game the right way. Third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. Number 27, Scott Rowland. He's my number 1. It wasn't that tough to pick number 1. It was kind of tough to rank the other ones, and I'm not even sure I did it completely right. But Scott Rowland is my favorite professional athlete of all time. I remember in 2002, he was playing for the Phillies, and there were these rumors. Walt Jocketty. Why can't we get Walt Jocketty back? He was such a badass, man. Walt Jocketty traded for Edmonds, McGuire, Renneria, Rowland, Darryl Kyle. I mean, he did all this shit. He was amazing. And then he got into, something happened where he got into it with, I can't remember what the hell it was, but we let Jocketty go and Mozeliak took over. Mozeliak's been fine, but man, Jocketty just got shit done. And he brought in Scott Rowland. There were rumors that he was going to, because he's from Jasper, Indiana. He's a Midwest guy. There were rumors that he was going to get traded to the Cardinals, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And they were like playing the Braves or something, and like on the Turner Network. I remember this. I saw him hit a homer for the Phillies because I hadn't seen him play like a whole lot. I just knew he was like a complete badass, but like an all-star Gold Glove third baseman for the Phillies, and still young. And he was like 27 or something like that. So the Phillies were playing the Braves. I just happened to watch it, and I saw Rowland hit a homer. And he just put his head down and like ran his ass off around the bases. And I'm like, we gotta make this happen. So Jocketty pulls it off, brings in Rowland, perfect Cardinal. We were on a 6-game road trip at the time. Cardinals were, and I bought a ticket, drove to St. Louis by myself, spur of the moment, and I'm like, I'm gonna be there for his first home game, so I can give him a standing ovation his first at bat. True story. Sad, going by myself a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't give a shit. I was like, I'm going. I wasn't married yet, obviously. I was just like, I'm going. So I went, scalped a ticket, back when you could scalp. Rowland's first at bat. He gets like a 1-minute standing ovation. And of course they're playing the. I knew his entrance music was going to be the Limp Bizkit song. Keep rolling, rolling, rolling. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And he tore it up, and it's like every time he came up to bat, or every time they announced him that first year, he'd get like a standing ovation forever. I remember one time he was at home plate, just like shaking his head, like man. And then like not long after he got traded there, he signed an 8-year extension, and I was just like, this dude is my guy. He's my guy. And so many memories of him. Like, went to so many games back then. Like, game 7 of the NLCS, me and a buddy went in 04 when he hit the homer off of Clemens. Just so many things, man. And he was just... And injuries, and he stopped Troy. 05, he stopped Troy. Roland's running out of ground ball, runs into he stopped Troy, F's up his shoulder. But Roland is a gamer, so he never let the shoulder heal that much because he wanted to play all the time. So he could have probably taken off like a year, got it completely healed, but he's not. That's not how he is. He's like a Midwest, hardworking badass, and he's just like, I want to play. So he never let it heal completely, and it affected his stats the rest of his career. But his stats were good enough to get in the Hall of Fame, though, weren't they? Because he went in the Hall of Fame as a Cardinal. So, by the way, Cardinals, don't be douchebags. Retire his number. Put a picture of him on the left field wall. Don't be idiots. But he's in the Hall of Fame as a Cardinal after all that, because I was like, man, 8-year extension. He's going to play. He's going to retire as a Cardinal, and he's going to go in the Hall of Fame and all this. And he didn't retire as a Cardinal because him and La Russa got into it, and I don't blame him at all because La Russa's kind of a douche, but they're both very stubborn as well. So I think that's probably why they got into it. But so he ends up getting traded, but he still ends up going to the Hall of Fame and goes in as a Cardinal. So I was thrilled when that happened last year. And I just think he is, if you have a child and you want them to know how to play baseball the right way, get on YouTube and just be like, hey, watch number 27 for the Cardinals the entire time. He is just, he's a baseball player. He's the way you should play the game. All these douchebags that hit home runs and stare at him and flip their bat and do little dances and all that kind of shit. I hate him. I hate them all. And Roland is the opposite of that. He is the shit. So, the second he got traded to the Cardinals, he was my favorite player, and it's never stopped, and he is my number 1 favorite pro athlete of all time. So, whew, that was a mouthful. But anybody else that wants to come in here, maybe I'll get some guys in here, and they can talk about their top 10 too, and we can debate and that kind of stuff. But so, quickly, my honorable mention, Kawhi Leonard, Brian Jordan, Jerry Hester, Kevin Garnett, Calvin Johnson, Nolan Arenado, Jack Clark, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Irvin. My top 10 favorite pro athletes of all time. Number 10, Chris Carpenter, pitcher for the Cardinals. Number 9, Nikola Jokic. Number 8, Klay Thompson. Number 7, Paul Goldschmidt. Number 6, Bo Jackson. Number 5, Peyton Manning. Number 4, Darren Williams. Number 3, Barry Sanders. Number 2, Scottie Pippen. And number 1, Scott Rowland. There you have it. Now, I will say this. Goldie's number 7, but it's probably just because he hasn't retired yet, and I don't know. But and I know the Scottie Pippen one seems like weird, but again, if you knew how obsessed I was with him growing up, then you would understand. So, that's my top 10. What's your top 10? Feel free to share. And I might be forgetting some, because when I came out here, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do the pod about, and I thought of it kind of quick. So I spent a little bit of time making my list, but again, Larry Bird, probably should have had him in the honorable mention. But I was so young. There's a pretty good chance if I'd have been like in my teens whenever he was playing, he'd be way up there. But I was young when he was playing, so I don't remember him quite as well. But I know that he was a complete badass. So even though I was like 7, 8 years old whenever he was at his peak, I still probably should have put him in the honorable mention. But so that is my list. I want to let everybody know before I get off here. Still have the jheath2286.podbean.com. Instagram, my X, Twitter, whatever, is at HeathBarnPod. and then the other stuff's Welcome to the Heath Barn on all the other social media stuff. But I'm getting the YouTube channel back up and going. I am getting better at editing, putting clips on there, stuff like that, and all these episodes are getting recorded. So the YouTube channel that I ignored for months is back. I'm gonna get it back up and running and have some plenty of stuff on there for everybody to find. So and it's just at Welcome to the Heath Barn. So keep that in mind. But well, that was kind of fun for me. You guys feel free to make your own list. Maybe I'll get some buddies on here, and they can talk about their list too. But in the meantime, fun episode for me. Thank you for listening, and that's that.